All right, so today we're going to be talking about 3 steps to create a virtual event setup, so sort of a studio setup. We'll take a couple looks at how to go about that. So the 3 steps will involve, that we're looking at today anyways, will be looking at what camera angles you're going to go for, so that'll be the first sort of step, and then what backdrop you'll need after you decide what kind of camera angles you're going to want from that. And then we'll take a look at lighting as well. So let's just go ahead and get right into it. So at the start of things, I'm actually just going to delete all of this. So in our templates up here, we actually have a new studio option. Right now we just have one quick studio template. So we'll just start with that. Let me clear that. I'm just going to go ahead and delete everything so that we can sort of start from scratch, because we won't need any of this for our studio setup. All right, so if I go back here and drag this studio template in, you can see what we have here is some scenery in the backdrop, a couple TV monitors, some lighting connected to a sort of rectangular truss grid. You don't have to do this setup. This is just, again, a template. You can go ahead and replace any of this truss. You can resize it just by moving the truss around and resizing it and making it higher if you need to. We also have some other staging options where you could maybe hold this up by some truss lifts or something like this. So that doesn't have to stay the same, but for this video, we'll just keep it like this. All right, so let's just bring in some presenters to see kind of what our setup might be like. So again, in the first step, we're just going to look at getting some camera angles that we might want for this virtual event setup. So down here in this presenters area, I have an option to drag out 5 presenters that are seated, so you can see them there. I'm just going to go to this top view and select all of them, and then I'll just drag them down. They pop up high because they usually just sit up on a stage, but in this case we'll go without a stage and we'll just look at them sitting here on the ground. I'm going to grab them real quick, and I think I'm just going to move them forward a little bit like this. All right, so let's talk about the camera angles real quick. So if I were to get rid of this, and maybe I'll go into a free camera view here. So what I might want to be doing, let's say, each virtual event is probably different, but let's say in this instance I do have 5 presenters here. So you might have your front sort of wider shot camera angle where you can show everyone all at once, but you might also want sort of some angles like this, and maybe another angle over here to show some of these presenters, and then possibly some close-ups and all that sort of thing too. So in this instance, we'll say that we're trying to get a few angles to show the presenters that are on these left and right sides. Typically, if you just had 1 or 2 presenters, or maybe 3 behind a desk or something like that, your area of focus is a lot smaller. You'd only be kind of looking at this small area. But since we have 5 here, we're going to be trying to capture all of these people. And so if those are our camera angles, and the amount of sort of width that we're covering here, we also probably want our scenery to sort of cover that area as well. So as I said, in step 2 to this, we'll be looking at backdrops. So if our camera angles are right here and we didn't have anything over here, if our camera angle was looking towards the presenters like this, and let's say this TV was not here, it would look a little empty over here. It almost just look like everything stopped. So in a live setting, you might have a lot of audience that are just here and they can see the backdrop here, but in a virtual setting, since you're going to have more camera angles at sort of harsher angles like this, you might want some scenery or something over here. So in this case, we'll just go ahead and leave these TVs here because that should be good enough. I think it's differential enough or differentiated enough to be on the side here. I don't think we need to add any scenery necessarily. However, it would also look nice too if you did add scenery over back here, and then that would give some more stuff in the background over there as well. All right, you could always change the size of these TVs if you wanted to, put different content on them, change up the scenery over here as well. Maybe you wanted to add more scenery. I do like the look of this because there's a good amount of contrast, and they are separated nicely from the presenters over here. One thing I would like to do real quick here is just look at a few different seating options. So in an instance like this, you have a white floor. Oops. Try to grab this seat here. You have a white floor and then white chairs, and to me it kind of looks like they just kind of blend in with each other. So I'm wondering if we add in a black chair here, it might give a little more separation. So kind of up to you, but I think that adds a little more separation between the floor and the chairs. However, it does make the chairs disappear a little bit in the background there. So possibly you have a gray chair or something like that, so you can play around with that sort of thing as well. All right, so we'll say that that's our backdrop, and now we'll go ahead and look at lighting. So if I go ahead and just increase the room intensity up here, maybe turn on these lines so you can see things a little bit better. See again that we have this grid up here, and this can definitely change, but in this template, this is just how it's set up. So we have some front lighting and some back lighting. If you do have some more camera angles again that are at the side, and you notice that that there's darker areas over on the left and right sides of the presenters, then you might want to add a light over to here. You can go ahead and change these lights out with different type of lights. So maybe if you selected all these and change them to something like this, but for this instance, I'm just going to use these kind of studio LED panel lights. And then, so you want the nice 45-degree angle. So in this case, if we go ahead and look at this kind of left view, you can see that that's about 45-degree angle. And then you would also probably want to angle these left and right too, in case you see any shadows. In this case, just to keep it simple, we're not going to get too detailed with that, so I think the lighting is just fine. Again, if you had some angles like this and you were noticing shadows over here on the left and right side of the presenters, then you might want to add some more lights and angle them. If you did that, you just want to be wary that if you add another light over here, it could cause some issues with some lights being too bright on just these people that are close to it, or potentially some of the people in the middle as well. So if I were to move this over a bit and add a light in there, it's probably lighting the people over here just a little bit too much, so you'd want to play around with that a little bit to make sure it's even. You might want to go a little bit wider with this truss instead of stopping it right here to get a more even wash in the front. And you could also do things like add, if you go up to staging here, you could add a pipe, let's say across the middle or something like that, or you could even add more truss across the middle. So there's some options as well if you wanted to add more lights up here. So if you wanted, who knows, a ton of lights on here, you could always do that. But basically, if you just had these lights, I'm going to go ahead and select these here, and then just show you the difference, how it looks without them. So that's just the backlighting there, you can see. And then we'll go ahead and add that light back in. Try to make it so that it's not too much intensity, so that you don't blow out sort of the whites and all that. And so that's about it as far as what you want to think about when doing a virtual setup. So you could easily go ahead and start with a template like this and then modify it as you need as far as truss and different elements and making changes to the backdrop and the branding and all that. But again, the three sort of steps that you want to pay attention to as far as formulating your plan would be the camera angles that you want, which will then in turn tell you what sort of backdrop you're going to need to cover those angles. And then, of course, how you're going to light everything to make sure that you can cover all the presenters and your backdrop. So hopefully that helps and gives you some things to think about. And yeah, tune in next time for the next topic we will send out. And if you need any more information or would like to get in touch, go ahead over to eventrender.com/RenderNow, and you can sign up to use this program. And we'll be in touch. Thanks.